What's going on, everybody out there? Thank you for joining us here at Lions Nation Unite. I'm Spencer Raxter, joined by the one, the only, the legend, Herman Moore himself. Appreciate you tapping in. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cowboys offense, what they have going on, the Lions offense, what they have going on before this big matchup in America's game of the week in Dallas. The Lions taking on the Cowboys. Herman, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. You know what? The Lions are the new America's team. I mean, we're not just from Michigan. It is about being America's favorite team right now. This is everywhere I go, people talk about what about those Lions. It used to be about what about them Cowboys, right? It's about what about them Lions, and they are doing their thing. They are picking right back up from where they've been building on for the last couple of years. So super exciting time, and the city itself is beaming, and it's everything's booming around here. So we're excited.
It's so cool. Everything that's going on downtown when you got the Red Wings starting up, the Pistons finishing, Tigers in the playoffs. Detroit is on fire right now, and you love to see it.
Yeah, they are, and it's because they've gotten through that phase of worrying about whether or not this team is for real, worrying about whether or not the Detroit Lions are a contender. This is a team that's for real. They've come together very well, and they've done it with a lot of young talent. And when you look at teams that are building long-term, sustainable, winning organizations and franchises, the Lions are doing it now, where most teams start and the Lions have continued to on that path. And I will say this, Spence. One thing that's real cool about it is that they haven't deterred themselves because they've had a couple losses early on when Coach Campbell got here. They haven't been deterred by that. What they've done is they've used that as fuel. They've used that as fire to drive them and make them a better team. And they've become very bonded, even if listening to a lot of the players' interviews this week.
Definitely, and we know a big reason that Dan Campbell gets with these guys is he doesn't let them forget anything. And something you can't forget is how that game ended in Dallas last year. Obviously, the refs with whatever happened with Skipper not eligible, but they lose that game, so you know they're going to have that fight and that emotion going into this one, going back to Dallas, where I feel like we always play in Dallas. When are the Cowboys going to come to Detroit? But that's another thing to talk about. But just them holding on to that fire from last year, you got to expect that this is going to mean something more than just another game.
It is going to be more than that, and the reason being is Detroit right now is coming off of a bye week. We talk about not wanting to have that early bye in the season because you want to wait till the players have been a little beat up, a little tested, a little bit more, and then you have the opportunity to recover. They don't have that luxury right now, so they're going to have to really be very careful and very not playing, not cautiously optimistic in terms of how they play or anything like that. They're going to have to go out and be, the same team that they've been, but understanding that you're not going to have that recovery that you typically look for in that bye week later or at the mid part of the season. I will say also when playing the Cowboys, Detroit is on the rise, and the Cowboys are still, for some reason, they seem to have this team that is always bringing back talent. They're always trying to retain some of the top players, but there's always some controversy. There's always some turmoil. There's always something that's going on that does not make them a cohesive unit. So if you don't believe having a great locker room, having a pulse of your players and a rapport through and through, top to bottom, is important. Look at what's going on there, and then look at what's happening in Detroit.
That's so true. And some of the big pieces that they retained on offense are obviously CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott both got these super huge deals over the offseason. And that's basically all their offense is so far this year. They can't run the ball very well. You got CeeDee Lamb, who last year against the Lions went for 270 yards. I mean, most of it was on one catch where he went for 100 yards. But how do you contain a guy like CeeDee Lamb that he's going to get his? He's the focal point of this Dallas offense. What do you do to try to stop him?
Well, I don't think necessarily you stop him as much as you contain. And it's limiting him from the big plays. CeeDee Lamb, he thrives, he and Dak on big plays. This offense for the Cowboys, they thrive on chunk yardage and getting big plays down the field. If you have to make them be consistent and move the ball down the field, I don't think it's a good offensive scheme for them because they don't have Pollard. They don't have Elliott. They don't have a dependable running game. But the other one they have, we talk about CeeDee Lamb, we talk about, with Prescott, but you can't forget about the tight end. Tight end is going to be a big piece. If you allow him to get lost in coverage, I think he can be the one that does most of the damage because he's going to be at that 12 to 15 yard area. And then if he gets up the seams, which we've seen him make some plays this year, that's where I think a lot of teams have lost him, because they're paying a lot of teams a lot of time attention to your dominant receiver. But with Lamb, I think you can frustrate him also, because you're making him have to work down the field with the smaller plays.
And from the receiver's perspective of that, being that guy, that alpha on this team that you're going to see 14, 15 targets a game, how do you prepare for a game like this? Because the Lions, they take the run game out for anyone. Even the Dallas Cowboys, who can't run the ball, nobody runs the ball on the Lions. So they're going to have to throw it. What's your brain process like going into a game knowing you're going to see 15 targets?
If I'm a receiver and I know that, hey, I'm going to be kind of the main target, and teams are going to be looking to take me out, I'm going to ask my coaches to move me, to make sure I'm never really in a stationary position. If I'm on the line of scrimmage, unless it's some type of an easy read man to man, I'm going to make sure that I'm not stuck on the line of scrimmage either. You want to have that receiver that typically is in the offset position, so that way if the quarterback decides to bring him in motion, he can bring him in a motion. He can bring him across the line. He can check out of things. He can move you out wide, versus when you're stuck on the line of scrimmage, sometimes it becomes a easier play to get jammed. I think with that, they're going to have to run some combination routes. That is always key when you have a player that everyone's looking for, and that's your passing attack. I would see that Dallas is going to do that. I think they're going to try and do some rub routes to where they're getting some picks in there. They're going to have to definitely do some combinations where you have to pass a player off to another player. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions, because they don't have to worry so much about covering two, one A and one B receivers, you can almost do a man with him and always have someone running, either pressuring him at the Lamb at the line, or having someone that's spying him and running underneath all of his routes. And that way you have a safety over the top. That negates the big play, but it also keeps the quarterback having to look for that second or that other option. And unless they get something going there, you pretty much make their offense null and void.
We did see the Lions do something like that to Justin Jefferson. It wasn't last year, it might have been 2 years ago with Jeff Okudah, and then they bracketed him over top with a safety all game. Having Kirby Joseph healthy and ready to go in this game will be huge if that's what they decide to do. If you're the wide receiver in that situation, I'm sure you faced a lot of bracketed coverages in your day. How do you beat that? If you know they've always got help over top and you got somebody physical like maybe Carlton Davis at the line jamming you, what do you do to try to get your game in motion?
Anytime if it's me and I'm looking at, okay, I got to beat this double coverage. I know they're going to play kind of man under, or they're going to play some type of a man trail. So they're going to jam me at the line, try and disrupt my route, but then they're going to have someone who's chasing me, and I got to beat that safety. The quicker you can get up on the safety, typically your safeties, in most cases, the safeties aren't as great at defending as your defensive backs. They don't get thrown at as much. They don't have to play pass defense as much. But in our case, our safeties are ball hogs.
Yeah.
You throw the ball up there, I would argue that they're more apt to pick the ball off than our cornerbacks. Their hands are phenomenal. Their angle to the back to the pass and the pass defense is great. The Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL in pass defense. So I don't worry about that if I'm Detroit. But if it's me as a player, I'm going, listen, as soon as I beat this guy at the line, I'm trying to get the ball in my hands. The difference is if I'm 6'4", 6'5", it's a little bit easier to take some of those chances and make some of those passes that are a little bit more riskier without it being a high percentage of it turning over the ball. But that's where sometimes you can negate speed, and you got to have that other person, that other part of the offense, whether it's the running game, whether it's another complementary wide receiver, that makes it work. Otherwise it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And speaking to that, you mentioned him earlier, Jake Ferguson, the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Seems like Dallas always has a solid tight end, whether it's Jason Witten. We saw Dalton Schultz over there a couple years ago. Now they got this Jake Ferguson guy. How easy is it to slip a big tight end in there when you're worried about a Herman Moore over the top, or a CeeDee Lamb in this case over the top, to just kill a defense with slipping that tight end, like you said, in that 7 to 12 yard range?
You know what? It's not hard to do that, but here's what Ferguson brings. He is a bigger version of a wide receiver. I mean, if you look, he runs well, he runs good routes. He's able to get up on the seam and on the safeties very quickly. So when your linebackers are running lateral, or they're running out to get to a position, sometimes he can run past them. And then if he's head up with them and giving them a move one way or another, he's hard to cover if you are a linebacker. You're not used to covering basically a pass catching tight end. So I think you're going to have to commit a safety down. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions, do some other special schemes where they bracket, or they do some type of a double coverage with Lamb, and then on Ferguson, what they're going to do is just spy him with a safety with a linebacker underneath. Safety's going to be over top. Linebacker's going to just make sure they know where he is, and they're getting the kind of a feel behind them in terms of seeing where he is in space. And that's how you negate it. They're going to force the Cowboys to do something else other than try and pass the football. I don't think that the Lions are going to fear that defensively anyway, but they're going to make it even more impossible for Dallas if they have to commit to the run, because their running game is just really a suspect. It's really not there right now. And it's nothing that I think they're going to fear right now. But this is the number 10th ranked offense. So it tells you that they can score points. They can move the football. So I don't think you take them lightly. They're playing at home. So the Lions have to make sure that they stay disciplined in everything they do. We've seen some sloppy play. We've seen some PIs in the secondary, but Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, he's not going to shy away from that. He wants the guys to stay aggressive, and yet at the same time, he knows that leads to making plays.
Oh, 100%. I love how much faith not only Dan Campbell but Aaron Glenn inspires in these guys. Like, yeah, Terrion, you've been a little grabby this season, Rook, but no, I don't care. I'm putting you out there on an island in man coverage against these guys. Feel like the coach has their back.
You know what? A lot of people have asked me, and I mentioned this earlier, Spence. You remember, man. I said, listen, with Arnold, he's a grabber. And if you look at his play, we saw it in preseason. We saw it in other areas. He could get away with that. He's being targeted and singled out because the coaches are making the refs aware. I'll tell you, when we go out to a game as a receiver, we'll walk up to the officials. They encourage us to go walk up to the official and say, hey, pay attention to this defensive back or this particular person, because they like to grab. They like to hold. They like to do all these different things. The coaches will also alert them to the same thing. When you do that, it's almost like the officials are looking for it.
Yeah.
So with Arnold, I think in the defensive side of it, they have to say, listen, stay in position. But if you have to do anything, I remember we used to run it in practice, man. They would literally tape the players' hands down sometimes and let them just try and mirror guys. So you don't get to run as much. And that's why you see in the defensive back drill, when they're kind of mirroring the receivers, they'll put their hands behind them and then they'll backpedal, and it's done so they don't touch the receivers, but they can just move and turn, change the directions, moving their hips. But he doesn't need all that. He's a talented player. It's going to take a little bit more time. He's just got to really mentally zero in and know that when the ball is in the air, you trust that he's in the right position, and then locate the football, and then understand, you know what, you don't have to start grabbing the receiver. You have to be conscious of space, and that's it. It's not a huge fix, but it can make a tremendous difference in a lot of these penalties.
And looking at the other side of the ball here for the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St.Brown and even Jameson Williams a little bit, J-Mo is just kind of subtweeting him on Twitter, have been talking about Jordan Lewis, the cornerback guy from Detroit. I believe he went to Cass Tech. He's a former Michigan Wolverine. He's been in the league for a while now. Wasn't really the greatest, but he's having a very good year this year for the Dallas Cowboys. Amon-Ra St.Brown explained him as the most frustrating cornerback that he's played against. He said, next time I'm out there, I want to kill him. Hey, first of all, did you have a guy like that you can remember, maybe didn't play you the best, but just got under your skin, that's like, okay, next time I see you, I'm gonna put 100 yards on your head and you're gonna remember it?
The easiest guy for me to put to say that with, and I don't know if they keep that stat, and I want to go back and look at it. We're good friends, but he may hate me for this. It's Martin Mayhew. When he was with Tampa Bay, he was an aggressive defensive back. He would read, he would barely back up. He didn't backpedal a lot, and he wanted to jump everything. And so we would double move him all the time. And 90% of the time, he would be beat on it. But instead of letting me get by, he did the smart thing. He would either grab me, tackle me, trip me, do something, and not let me get by. And it was the most frustrating, because if you go look at my statistics, just as an individual, not because I need to have these big numbers, but my numbers against Tampa Bay were always small. They were minimal. They weren't anything impressive. And it was because of that. And I think that with Jordan Lewis, he's probably very similar. I used to watch him a lot when he was at Cass Tech. I saw his development from high school all the way to when he went to college. And then from there, going over and playing, because he was a dual player. You know, he played receiver, he played defensive back. So he understands both sides of it. But now that he's settled in at the defensive back position, when guys are talking and they're out there going, and St. Brown doesn't seem like the type that wants to talk a lot. But I know in his press conference, he mentioned that, you know what, as soon as that happens, it gets him going. And he goes, okay, that's what we're doing. Then that's what we're going to do. So I actually hope that Jordan Lewis talks to him and gets him going, because he's a big play. He's proven to be just such a tremendous talent for the Lions. And it's been great to watch his journey. So yeah, if anything, if that's going to be the additional motivation that the Lions need, then I say, young man, Chapel, you know, go ahead, y'all talk it away and go out there and get ready to rumble.
And before we get to like some closing thoughts here, it just came into my mind. I don't know why I haven't thought of this all week, but Deron Bland, the cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, he's trending towards playing. You know, they got Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, another fantastic cornerback. And now Jordan Lewis, what he's doing in the slot this year, they have a very good trio of defensive backs. And when you're a wide receiver going up against something like that, where you don't have a guy that's like, okay, if I'm on him, I know I'm going to kill him. Like, there's not a weak link out there you can kind of target. What's your mindset knowing you're not going to have a play off no matter who's guarding you?
It keeps you focused. If you're a competitor, like I know Jameson Williams is, I know how St. Brown is, I know they're going to be focused on every route, because you don't take a play off. You don't take anything for granted. You stay within your discipline. You stay within really the quality of who you are as a player. And if you play at a high level, you stay at a high level. So I think that is something that this team will welcome. They're not an intimidated group. And, you know, David Montgomery said something that was really important. He said they have removed the individual part of being on this team in terms of who needs to have statistics and accolades. They asked Montgomery about 1,000-yard seasons and all that. Who cares? He didn't care. He says, you know what? People aren't going to remember that. They're going to remember championships. So when this team is out there playing, they're going to be playing for that alone. They're not going to care about who gets the accolades. They're not going to care who shines. You know, these guys have been taken care of. You know, yeah. St. Brown has this contract. Goff has this contract. Montgomery, you know, came over from Chicago, and now he's here in a position that makes sense for him. And he's excelling. He's got a great backup guy that they even create a tremendous bond and brotherhood in the backfield. This is a team that is bonded, man. This is a team that is ready to go out and take on anybody and everyone together. Yes. That is the key. It is not about the individual piece. So, you know what? If they want to have a fourth defensive back that they bring in there, and all of a sudden there's no drop off in the talent, I welcome that too, because you know what? That just means now you got Laporta, you got the running backs, you got both receivers, you got everyone now firing on all cylinders. So this is a team that's built for it.
And Herman, I love these conversations. I just feel so blessed. Not everybody has the opportunity to pick the mind of just a complete legend in the sport, and the knowledge you drop is just so great. And before we get out of here, is there, you want to make the score prediction, game prediction now? I put mine out on the heavyweights earlier today. I'm really confident in this game. I said I think the Lions are going to win 34-17. Go down there, run the ball. Goff's going to have all day in the pocket because they don't have their edge rushers, and I think they get an easy win in Big D.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big victory for the Lions. Prediction. If I had to give you a prediction on this, one, I think the Lions are definitely over 30 points in this game. I just don't see how they're held to less, because I think they're going to have the football a lot more. I don't think Dallas goes slow style offense. I think they're going to try and take some chances. I think the defense is going to get there. I think Prescott's going to turn over the passes, whether it's in the air or whether it's off of a sack. And I just don't think they'll get much going offensively. On the flip side of that, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at Lions by 20 or more in this game. And I just right now, Dallas has to prove, even if they're at home, that they have a team.
Yes.
And I'll put it like that. You have to have a team. Forget about the players. Forget about the beautiful stadium and all this other hoopla and on the Super Bowls that have been won in the past, man. I just think this team is in trouble. And I don't know if they can bounce back against a team like Lions who are hungry.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Like, this is one of the most stress-free weeks leading up to a game I've had as a Lions fan. I just completely think they're going to dominate them.
But wait a minute, though. I almost feel the stress. I'm like, please, coming out of here's one thing we didn't talk about, and I'll end with this. When you come off of a bye, the thing the coach does not know is how the team will respond. Will it be a flat team? Will it be a well-rested team? Or something in between? Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And if I had to say, if that's the only, I want this team to get off to, it doesn't have to be a fast start. It has to be off to a solid discipline and attention to detail. It's all about making the plays. If the plays are there, if they're not there, you get rid of the ball, right? It's that simple. Smart football, not only from the players, but from the coaches. And if they do that, they'll work their way into, if they're hot and they're on fire, they'll stay on fire. If they're not, they can build themselves back into it and remember where they left off and pick right back up.
100%. Well, I appreciate it. Again, these are so awesome. So many people would love to be in this spot that I'm in, and I appreciate you letting me here to pick your brain a little bit. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Lions Nation unite. Herman Moore knows what it means to beat the Cowboys, and that's what the Lions are trying to do this week going into Dallas. Appreciate you all for watching. I'm Spencer Axter. He, obviously, Herman Moore. Appreciate you joining us, Herman.
And the guy that's never lost to the Cowboys. Boom.
There you go. There you go. You heard. If anybody knows how to beat him, it's you. There it is. All right, everybody. We'll catch you later. Go Lions.
Go Lions.